Welcome back to my channel. So I've been studying Japanese now for 1.5 years. I could be off on the timeline just a little bit, but I wanted to give you guys a quick update so you guys can see my progression. So I went ahead and rewatched my 6-month and 1-year videos, and I made some notes so that we can kind of have a comparison as to where I was at what point. So looking back at my 6-month journey, I had been introduced to roughly 600 kanji, proficient-ish at about 500. I had maybe a couple thousand vocab, but many of those vocab weren't necessarily the most common words because I was learning everything with WaniKani. I had extremely weak grammar, and if you look back at my archive, I really didn't even have that many article reading videos at this point. My speaking, absolutely non-existent. I hadn't started yet. And my listening comprehension was barely there. I'm sure if I was listening to even a basic thing, I could only get maybe a word here or there, but that's about it. And looking at my 1-year progress, it looks like I was familiar with roughly 800 kanji. Throughout my journey, I'm really not sure in tracking where I am vocab wise. A lot of the vocab, again, that I've learned through WaniKani is just there to help ingrain the kanji, and it's not necessarily commonly used words. Throughout this whole thing, I've probably got a few thousand words that I can recognize when I'm reading, but I have a much smaller vocab pool when I'm trying to do things like speak. So at this point, I felt like I was still N5. My reading might have been closer to the N4 because at this point, I actually had started studying some grammar. To me, looking back, my listening and speaking were still in the infant stages. I barely had started speaking at all. I think I might have had a few videos up at that point where I was trying to speak to ChatGPT. And looking back at listening, I could probably understand some basic sentences at this point. I might miss a few words, but I was able to get enough where I could put the sentence together, or at least have a good idea of what was going on. And I even mentioned in the video, I gave an example as far as where my speaking was, and I could only say like really basic things as far as like what my favorite food was. Okay, now we're at 1.5 years. My reading, I feel like, is much stronger. I'm at the point where I'm reading NHK articles with no furigana, and then I go back through and see how my pronunciations are. I have plenty of videos up if you want to go back and look at that. So thinking about my listening comprehension, I would say it's at about the same point as I was at year 1, maybe a little better, but it's definitely taken a back seat recently. I feel like I'm much more equipped to get my point across when speaking. The only problem is that I feel like my vocab is still weak. So oftentimes when I'm trying to think of what to say, I have a very small pool of words to grab from. And then real quick, looking at kanji, I feel like I've been introduced to roughly 1,000 kanji, and I'm proficient in maybe 875 to 925, maybe somewhere in there. I still use WaniKani for the majority of my kanji study, but in this last 6 months, I took, I think, 45 days off where I didn't study at all. And those 45 days really hurt me when I came back and tried to pick up kanji again. So real quick, going through everything that I used to study, I really haven't deviated much from what I used to do. I used WaniKani for kanji, Bunpro for grammar. I recently went back and actually started reading Genki 1 for grammar to brush up on some of the easy stuff. For speaking, I just speak to ChatGPT or myself, or I just try and come up with some basic sentences and do some videos of them. For my listening comprehension, it's a mix of some very simple podcasts, YouTube videos, and then I'll have ChatGPT ask me questions and I'll see what I can comprehend, and I will even try and respond. Oh, and I almost forgot. For my reading, I'm still primarily reading articles on the NHK Easy Japanese News website. Soon I feel like I'm going to try and pick up a few manga and get through those, but we'll see what happens in the near future. So that's just a quick summary of where I am at year 1.5. I've definitely made progress. Overall, I feel like I'm finally closer to the N4 level than the N5, which I'm happy about. In this next year, I really hope to take the JLPT N4 exam, but it kind of depends on where I'm at, how close testing centers are, that kind of thing. Thank you guys for watching as always. If you guys have any recommendations for me, please feel free to leave them in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe as it really helps me out, and I will see you guys in the next video.